Hi everybody, Jennifer Blevin-Smith with Integral Clinic Solutions, and you're watching my YouTube channel, Navigating the Business of Medicine. Welcome to today's video. I'm really excited about this. I get a lot of communication from viewers asking about the kind of confusing way to be able to work in PECOS and how it kind of works. This is going to be a two-parter video, and it's going to get you to the point where you can access PECOS, but I'm not going to actually log into PECOS and show you how to work in there because I do work on behalf, or I have information from past providers from my past life that I still have access to, and I don't want to show any of their information for privacy reasons, of course. But the biggest steps that people get hung up on is actually being able to work on behalf of a provider or a group in PECOS in order to move forward with enrollment and reassignment. So I just want to start with introducing this identity and access management system. I know I've done share screen videos before about this, and the identity and access management system is very important. It's kind of the gatekeeper to the PECOS website and the MPPES website, and you're probably going, both of those sound really familiar, and they should, especially if you are doing credentialing and contracting, because PECOS is where providers that are new and never been enrolled in Medicare, that's where you can initiate that enrollment. It's where you can reassign existing providers who are participating with Medicare to another group. And it's also where you can initiate enrollment for a new group or a new clinic or a new organization. It's very important and pivotal to have access and understand how that works if you're doing credentialing and contracting. Whether you're doing it yourself as a provider, whether you've hired someone to do it on your behalf, or you are expecting your manager to do it, or you are a manager doing it, everyone's going to need to understand how to access PECOS and how you're going to be working in PECOS depending on your role, okay? And we're going to go over that in the first part. The second part of the video, which will be released later this week, is going to actually talk to you about what you should be looking for and how to request access under your role. But it all starts here in the identity and access management system. So if you do not have a login or you can't remember your login to the INA system, this is the first step. You need to either get access by registering or creating an account now, or you need to click forgot password and troubleshoot it there, or retrieve your forgotten user ID. But either way, you need to make sure that you are coming in here and you are making sure you have access to this. And all providers that you're going to be working on behalf of, if you are a third party, you need to make sure they have access too, because they're going to have to be able to log in and approve your access to work on their behalf. So everyone should really be up to date and know how to get in here. There's a lot of different resources. As you can see, there's a user guide, there's things on, forgotten your credentials, all of that. But it also says right here, one account to access multiple systems, the PECOS, the MPPES. Again, MPPS is where MPI numbers are housed. That's where individual providers request a new MPI when they are new to being a provider. They get assigned that MPI 1 that follows them through their entire career. So if they have an MPI 1 number, most likely they have an INA access login. It might have been a really long time ago that they got in there, but they need to troubleshoot and get access again, okay? And the thing about this is it is a government website. It's hosted by HHS. So if you start saying you want a new account and you fill out the information, it will tell you if somebody matching the same information already has an existing account and how to find that information. It does not let you create duplicates. So the account that I'm using is the account I've had for probably 15, 20 years. And I just use a personal email address because I learned the hard way of using an employer's email address, because then I got locked out because I couldn't access that old email. It was through an old employer, and I couldn't couldn't do anything. So I've learned the hard way, and I have my own personal address listed under here as a third party so that I can access it no matter where I work. Okay. So anyway, we're going to go to the user roles because that's what I really want to focus on in this half of the video. And I just opened the quick reference guide, and we're going to be on page 4, so you don't have to go too far into it. And it says, what type of user are you? And this is very, very important. This is important if even you're going to have somebody working on your behalf, because you want to make sure that you are granting people access to work under your behalf if you're a provider or you own an organization with the very minimal access that they need to do their job. Okay. So you'll understand that a little bit more as we go through these, but I really want you to understand these. And if you're a credentialing specialist, you need to understand this as well when you're requesting access to this for other providers and organizational groups. So the first 3 are basically the different types of providers that would have access to the INA, PECOS, and NPPES. You have individual providers or suppliers, and these are going to be individuals that have been assigned an MPI 1 number, an MPI individual number. And this is going to be anybody that bills out and needs to have that MPI 1 number. So most likely any medical professional, okay, that it actually treats and sees patients, or again, a supplier. Then you have an organizational provider. And I know that word provider throws people off, but this is basically a new group, okay, a new company. And yes, they are going to be listed in INA. They might not necessarily have their own login because it's not a real person, but they're going to be tied to the owner or whomever creates that joint login for this organization. So usually it's the provider owner that logs in under their own INA. They go to NPPES, they request the MPI type 2 for a new group, and then they are going to be attached through their login to this entity. Now, keep in mind that just because they're attached in the system under this group organizational provider doesn't mean there aren't going to be other steps they're going to have to take to work on behalf of the group. Okay, so just keep that in mind for me. And then you're going to have the third party organization. These are going to be billing agencies, credentialing specialists, consultants like myself, staffing companies, anybody that could have a business relationship with the first 2 options, which are the individual providers who have MPI 1s and the organizational providers who have an MPI 2 number. Okay. So these are the 3 different types of users. Then we go into the different accesses that you could have as a user. And I know they put this all under the type of user, but think of it as the first 3 is the what type are you, or what type is your client, and then what access are they going to have under their type. Every type is available to have these different accesses, but it just depends on really the person who owns the original login or the original type of user, what they want to grant people to have the certain access on their behalf. Because what happens is when you get an INA, for me, for example, as a third party, I have to request from individuals and organizations if I can work on their behalf. And in order to work on their behalf, they have to be able to grant me certain roles. So these are the different roles, I should say. So you have authorized official. This is usually the owner of the company. So this is usually a provider owner, which is the most common. It could be the owner of the company, like CEO. Maybe if it's like kind of a board ran or corporate ran type entity. But the authorized official is usually the owner. Okay. Then you have the access manager, and the access manager is someone who the authorized official delegates in their spot. So the access manager has all of the same abilities in their role as the authorized official, but they are maybe like a very trusted manager. They're a co-owner, something like that, or a smaller shareholder of the company. And they, just like the authorized official, can legally bind the business or the provider to whatever is going on. They're able to make business decisions. They have to follow Medicare guidelines, like the weight of making sure that everything is being followed and being followed correctly, compliance wise, falls on the shoulders of the authorized official and the access manager, if there is one. There doesn't have to be an access manager, and if someone isn't comfortable granting someone an access manager, that's totally fine, but it does give an option. Old school, before they changed these titles of the roles, it used to be delegated official. So if you used to work in here a long time ago, you might say, I don't recognize that role title. You probably wouldn't, because it used to be called a delegated official. And unfortunately, some of the documents in PECOS, when you're working through enrollment and reassignment, still says delegated official instead of access manager. So it can be very confusing, but just make a note that delegated official and access manager are the same, and they're used interchangeably with the same roles and responsibilities. Then I'm going to skip the staff end user, because then I kind of think of this as a tiered role system. So at the top you have the AO, which is the authorized official. And then next you have that access manager. And then the third step would be a surrogate, work as a surrogacy. And it's exactly like it sounds. It's someone who would have more access to do what they need to do on behalf of a provider or organization. So a third party like myself would be a surrogate. And I would be able to do everything I would need to be able to do for credentialing and contracting, but I wouldn't have that legal binding ability. I wouldn't be able to do anything business wise on behalf of the provider or the company. I would just basically be granted access to work on behalf to get done what I needed to do and nothing more. And I also always need to remember to follow Medicare guidelines, but it's not me who would necessarily get in trouble if other things didn't go correctly for the organization or the provider in practice. Okay. So the surrogacy is really important. Make sure you guys are reading this as well. It's at your fingertips. Use it as a resource. And then the very last level, the very basic access, I like to call it, the role is the staff end user. And basically, the end user can go in there, they can see providers, they can see organizations, they can make some changes here and there, but overall, they're just basically there to use it as a resource to check on things and not really work on behalf of anybody. Where the surrogacy, you can work on behalf of the providers and the groups. And this little table really sums it up nicely, explaining all of the different abilities for each role and how it all kind of comes together. Okay, so before you jump into this, you need to make sure, one, you have access to the identity and access management system, and then you're going to need to understand what role you need. And also keep in mind that you can have different accesses granted to you by the provider or the organization based on this. So maybe you need access to PECOS, but you don't need access to the MPPES. So in that situation, you would only request access to PECOS and not MPPS, or vice versa. Or you could have both. It just depends. But again, if you are someone who's going to be authorizing users to work on your behalf, such as a provider or a provider who owns an organization in there, make sure you're not giving access to people for things that they don't need. You want to give them the necessary access, but not more than they need, because that's how accidents can happen, unfortunately. So in our next video, I'm going to log into the system, and I'm going to kind of give you just a basic overview of what the next step is after you get access to INA and how the requests need to be made in order to work on behalf of other people. Okay, so thank you so much. I appreciate it. Please look for my next video as we will complete this process. Smash that thumbs up button if today's video was helpful. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and please share this with your colleagues because I know this is usually something that a lot of people need help on. Thank you again. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.